guys match.
No filter with things again.
Cool,
Truck
man,
right
cool.
here.
That's
That's all we got on it.
The
I didn't see it.
executive session.
Yeah, but there's no support in it. What'd you do?
No, I don't know, my computer's still.
Yeah, no, I looked.
Oh, I just had
but
to
I didn't
get in there.
Yeah.
I did.
So where did you go to?
There was, I couldn't even tell you.
Pick it up on that?
No, I just think it's technical enough with
Did the bear come and visit you or again or no?
Huh?
Did the bear come and visit you?
Rip on it.
The bear?
Oh, did he go visit you?
I haven't seen him. Why not? I forgot you guys were neighbors.
I learned my name. I learned this stuff.
No, it actually grabs our punchers.
I haven't been around.
They hit one of my parks, but not both last night. Cedar Ridge up the south got hit last. Bear.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's work session. Today is September the 9th, 2019. The time is now 5 p.m. The Cedar Springs work session will come to order. We have pretty much just two items on there, and the third one's just discussing the potential items at the end. But item one is ransomware IT. Item two is landfill e-waste recycling fees. So let's start with the ransomware, and I guess our IT person.
Yeah, Council, I'm not sure if you've met John.
I've met John.
Okay.
I have not.
I met him once.
That means your
I didn't know who
computers
he
are
was.
working good, right?
No, it means I drop him through the window at the police department. He calls me when it's done and I go pick it back up.
John Agnello, he's our IT director.
Anyway, John, as you know, that is the concern that we have is, there's this big talk in the country today about ransom.
Not only talk, actual attacks.
And actual attacks. And some people are getting stuck paying if they want to get out of it. So I guess we want to find out from you if there are questions from council. Is there a way to protect ourselves?
There absolutely is, and I hope you each got the memo that I submitted. So, okay, you have that in front of you. So basically, ransomware is a global threat, and I think the key part of that sentence is it's for unprepared organizations. That's what's happening, is people are just unprepared for it. The businesses, the state and local agencies. There are things that we can do, and in fact, our organization does. So if you'll jump into that summary there, you'll see that I have about 5 key elements that we are doing in this city. One is perimeter defense. We have firewalls that protect our internal network and our resources. Second is our internal defenses, and that would be our antivirus software that we run on our systems. Third would be our backups. We do have backup systems in place, and backups are happening. Fourth would be updates. We have a lot of systems and software, and they all need to be updated, and that is happening as well. And finally, training, because one of the key aspects of all this is our employees. Are they clicking on things and allowing bad stuff to come in? So training is just an ongoing thing. All right, so we do all 5 of these. There's been a bit of a gap since the last IT director and myself coming on board, so that to me is a warning that I need to get out there and survey all our systems, make sure things are still happening like they're supposed to be on this list, and that's just something that I'll be doing this quarter. Any other questions?
Do you need to have our computers in order to do that?
I'll say it again,
Do
please.
you need to have our computers in order to be able to do that?
Yours will be part of it. I need to see what's happening on these older Chromebooks, and we actually just mentioned that they're pretty old and you're having some issues with them, and that sounds like something you need to fix. New systems, I think, would be
Or
in order.
replaced, but, yeah.
Replaced.
Okay.
Karen?
How often do you back up the data?
All our data is backed up on a daily basis. Again, because there's been a gap between the last IT director and myself, I would want to
Make sure.
audit and survey all that and make sure that it's happening. I should be able to look at paperwork and say, daily backups are happening, weekly backups are happening, off-site backups are happening. So give me a chance to go survey every single thing we've got and make sure it's being done. But the good news is, I see evidence of all of it.
Do you see a problem with staff internet surfing, or is there anything in place that would stop a virus coming in from a staff person going into an unsecure site?
Well, actually, yes, it is. If you look at item number 2, it's our internal defense.
Okay.
We actually have our antivirus software running.
Okay, so let's say somebody goes on to an unsecure website,
Yes,
what happens?
our software would jump in front of that
And say,
and try to stop it. If it actually gets through because of some new exploit that not anybody has figured out yet, that thing would try to land on our PCs, and our software would jump in front of that and tackle it and knock that out.
okay,
Now, our software just came up for renewal in the past month or so. I saw that. It's a pretty good product that we use. I won't mention the name. But they also have specific anti-ransomware components. And I went on ahead and renewed and asked for that. So we'll be getting that in. And as I hit each and every machine to make sure they're doing the right thing, we're going to flip them over to the anti-ransomware part as well. That will give us a bunch of additional benefits so that if people are surfing the web or doing whatever, it should jump in front of them.
okay. No other questions, thank you.
I recently heard about a community where their pensions were pretty much just hacked up. And I don't know about all this, but under which of these 5 would that protection be available to help for our city staffs for their retirement plans and things like that?
Because you're saying the word hacked and because you're mentioning pensions, it's probably data. A lot of criminals try to target our data and get at it. So again, we have perimeter defenses in the form of our firewalls that just don't allow people to come onto the site.
Okay.
Secondly, do you want to jump in
Well, I'm
front?
just curious about that because the city doesn't invest the money. I mean, it would be, Fidelity or money managers who do it. So what was the hacking that you talked, was it
I can't remember. I heard it on the
data,
news.
theft of privacy?
I heard it just briefly on the news
Because
about.
they can't take money out of city account, well.
I don't know how it
not
worked out,
pension
but there was a
account.
community where, depending on how they set up their financial pension plan, they lost a lot of their plan, either through their 401k or if it was through another
I wonder if
plan.
they were managing it, I'd be curious.
I don't know, but it definitely, it was a question I wanted to ask for this particular session.
So again, it sounds to me like data was hacked. Once they have access to the data, then they can do a number of tricks out in the world to start accessing those financial institutions where the pensions are kept.
So maybe it's
And
some
pull the
special
money out that way.
policy.
To do that, they have to get at the data. And so that's again, one of our safeguards. Don't let them inside. If they get on a machine, have our software jump in front of that and block it. So,
Just very recently, another board that I'm on, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, they ran a very big program, and ransomware, I guess, was a subset of what they called phishing with a PH.
yes.
And the idea is that, they're trying to bait you into clicking on something that is either going to install ransom software, or it could be, you click on something that gives them access to data that is otherwise valuable to them. Anyway, they did a very good webinar on it. Would you be interested in taking a look at that?
I'm always interested in seeing everything that's out there. Actually, a little further down, I mentioned 2 paragraphs where we're joining organizations that provide information like this. So definitely send me.
Well, it'd be a matter of them sharing it with you. 'Cause,
Yes, so
it's
share the
not an
information.
organization that their purpose is affordable housing.
Yeah.
Good.
In other words, all of us are in the same boat. We're
Yeah,
all up
exactly. I think
against a
people
bunch of bad
it's a
criminals.
mode where you want to share it with people.
Yes,
And
so
and to keep
share
it
as much as
back.
you can.
Okay, I'll get in
Again, I
contact
consider,
with you if that works. Okay.
yes, and I consider 5 very
And it's
important.
the idea is,
Training.
their approach was to take a prophylactic approach where you train employees on what not to click on.
Yes,
And that's the first defense.
yes.
So, and then the virus and okay.
Training is key.
Rusty.
You want me to drop that off back at the police station in the morning?
Actually, I just talked with the city clerk, and our attitude on it is these machines are old, and that's actually a security flaw.
All right.
To have a machine that is that old, so it is time that we got these upgraded for you, and we'll
All
look
right.
into that and get it done.
So that's a no then?
That's a no in that, we're going to move you to new machines. It's a yes in that we're always here to help.
Alright,
So drop it off at the PD, I'll take a look at it and see if I can give you an interim fix.
alright, thank you. That's all I have.
What happened?
The
The question I have is, this, we're protected.
Mhm.
But let's say for some reason or another that they get through, and there's some there's some intelligent people out there that are doing this thing. And you said that our contract, whoever company that we're involved with now, because let's say we ask for $100,000, are we protected in any way from our insurance to pay that in case something like that comes up? What?
I have not seen any evidence of an insurance program. That would be a great thing to add. I would actually have to get with our city clerk
I
to find
think-
out.
I don't mean to interrupt, I think that's like giving into extortion.
No.
Well, I mean,
The thing about it is, how do you
No.
get your information out of it back? If it
Well,
is
we
a-
don't get our
Paying-
information back. That is, if you decided you were in a boat where you had to pay. Again, if we look at item number 3, if our backups are in place, there is
Shouldn't happen.
no way that we should be paying ransomware. In general, you don't wanna pay ransomware because it just encourages the criminals to keep on going.
I was just wondering, just in case, you
No,
know, there's always
Can
that.
I answer that question?
Sure.
CIRSA, you should ask CIRSA if you have cyber liability on your policy. Because what happens there is not like when he's talking about the data, if like employee information is on anything that website that involves the city, if somebody gets that information and somebody's information is hacked into and they start getting credit cards and you know, the usual scenario, then the cyber liability would pay for any damages sustained by a third party.
but isn't ransomware like, you get an email saying, I've accessed your accounts, pay me money, or I'm gonna crash your computer, or take your information?
No, they crash your computer and then say, I'll uncrash it if you give me.
Okay.
You have to pay them in electronic payments for the keys to undo what they have done.
Okay.
Exactly
Colorado
right.
Department of Transportation was attacked. And I don't know what they did, but I know they got it undone, but it was at a huge cost, and not necessarily financial.
Yes.
That they have to redo that. And what I read when I first suggested we invite you to talk to about this is these extortionists not necessarily are gonna do Trinidad and ask for $1 million. That would be ridiculous. But they're gonna ask for 300,000,
Yeah.
knowing that we would like to pay it because we don't have the option to do something different. And you know, catch a lot of small fish, and eventually you have a big meal.
I paid $75 to free up my liquor store. on the
Well, yeah,
first
okay,
one.
case in point.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they knew, it was like, well,
That was an
And you
easy
have no
decision.
guarantee
Yeah.
that they won't do it again. You know, and I'm listening to you, and you seem rather absolute, but I temper that to know that there's always, well, for what you're standing there telling us we're protected, some clown in there, someplace else is thinking, like that. You understand what I'm saying?
I do
this is an
understand.
everyday job that you have.
Yes, it's
To
tough.
keep track of it. So I don't mean to be insulting if
No,
it's
not at
coming
all.
across that way, but nothing is absolute. There's
That's
always-
why my question is somebody can always, there's a lot
Yeah.
of people out there can do some crazy stuff. Yeah, it's amazing.
So again, I'd just like to point out, if we're unprepared, things can get through. And we are doing everything in our power to be prepared, and I hope these 5 bullet points
Well,
show
yeah.
you that we're tackling these issues.
And in terms of the relationship between you and your responsibilities and those of us here,
Yeah.
what would you need to support what you need to make our system safer? You talk about replacing these 7 Chromebooks, right? And how many? And I know there's a number of computers at desks in here at headquarters, for lack of a better way. But how many field computers are out there with water and sewer and electricity, and people using the computers to do stuff there?
Well, every single one of them should be running the same set of protections that we're doing here. And again, it's my job to go audit each and every one of these PCs and make sure they're doing the right thing.
And I'm guessing that I hope there's some sort of a coordination between what we're doing and Tiber Technologies, what they do, and how we overlap.
Yes, except for luckily for us, there are armies of people in the cloud tackling anything
Okay.
that we have other than cloud already.
And I'm not gonna pretend to be computer literate, but when you talk about backing up, we're backing up to a safe place, right? Not elsewhere on the same computer.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, multiple locations.
All right.
Do you have your own personal timeline of when you might want to try to finish auditing all of the information?
It'll be done by the end of the 4th quarter. And when I say audit, I don't go out to find problems and then just report back to you. I find it and I fix it right there and then. So my contractors and I will hit each and every machine. If we happen to find a machine that is, for whatever reason, fallen backward out of its good state, we're putting it right back in place.
And I know
Find it and fix it.
Mayor, you're new to your position, but do you find that you have the resources necessary for you to do what you got to do?
I believe we do. I believe we have everything in place. I have the budget this year to improve anything I find that's not right.
Right.
And we're gonna tackle it and get it fixed, if we find it.
Another question?
Just touching off of something that you said,
Sure.
and it's kind of off topic, but this is a work session as opposed to a general meeting, so I'm gonna ask it anyway. You said we have old equipment.
In your case, these Chromebooks, yes.
Oh, what about the city?
City has fairly reasonable machines.
Okay, that's where I
I
was
think it's
concerned.
because we
assumed
have
that
a pretty good
was-
external contractor. Everyone knows him,
Right.
and he does a great job
So
of
we don't
making
have
sure you've
any
got the power you need to get the job done.
liability that is gonna be in the next few years to update all our computers, like the government faces from time, like the federal government faces from time to time. Where
There
they're
could be
dealing with
liability, and I
PCs
have
from
to
the-
hear about it, and
No, liability meaning it's something that needs to be fixed, like a nascent liability.
do you have an example?
Yeah, if we had to-
These
if we had
machines
to
right
replace-
here are probably the
No,
oldest I've seen
I'm
so
talking about
far.
citywide,
with a
if we
few
had to
exceptions.
replace $500,000 worth of computers next year. There's nothing happening.
Oh,
with
okay,
that.
I'm not aware of any kind of a
We're pretty
mandate
good,
like that
we're
coming
up to
down.
date right now.
Yes,
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
yes,
Because
the
I keep
one
reading
thing,
about the Department of Defense and they're
I
dealing
think-
with computers from 1998.
I think, we have nothing that ancient in terms of hardware. Probably next year, we have Windows 7 as some of our operating systems out there. There's a lot of Windows 10, a lot of Windows 7, all the Windows 7s will be moving to Windows 10. That'll be a next year project.
No, think about it, with Windows 10, there's been a lot of problems with Windows 10.
All the vendors update their software constantly, and so it's always a battle between the criminals and the producers of the operating system. Windows 10 has some features that you might consider to be a hole, but they also have a feature that's pretty critical to us, and that's updates. So if you look at item number 4, Windows 10 does automatic updates. That means I don't have to run around and update all the machines, I just have to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Windows 10 is updating constantly and automatically.
Now,
And
do
that's
you
a good
do that
thing for us.
globally yourself, or does each
Say it again,
department
please.
globally, do you do that yourself for all of the machines?
Microsoft does it. Our
Right.
Windows 10.
Because I know I had Microsoft, I had Windows 10 on my personal computer at home. I took it off because it was asking me like every week or every other week to an update. So I went back to Windows 7, and the reason being is for the number of updates. And that was my concern, is that they do it, but I actually have to push the button to update it.
We actually have settings that we can set at our end that say do it automatically, do it transparently in
And
the
they
background.
would-
As I hit each machine, if I don't see those settings in place, they'll be in place.
And that would be done during off hours rather than.
It would be nice.
All the
My
reason-
boss.
The reason being is I know when, in my personal computer, when I would click that, sometimes it would take, half an hour.
Oh, you're talking about the updates themselves.
Right,
I
updates.
thought you were talking about me going and
No.
updating all the machines.
They
So,
just take so much time to update, and I was talking about setting it so that they could be done.
the same settings that I would set to make sure that they're working right and updating can also be set to happen off hours. One thing I need to find out is, do people leave their machines on, or do they turn them off? I do not know the answer to that. As I figure this out, we're gonna be putting in place the things that would make sure that they automatically update. Again, if holes are happening in these 5 because people are turning their machines off, I've got to find that and stop it.
But I think we need to be of the mindset that these computers have been here, I think, at least 6 years that I'm aware of. Maybe not that long, at least 5.
Okay.
But there has to be a rotation. We're just recently replacing old vehicles in the fleet.
Okay.
Those that we have driven for 200,000 miles, and we just can't get parts anymore, we don't know how to make the ones we need. So we have a rotation, about 5 trucks, things of that nature. And this is just like that. It's not one and done, and you're good for the rest of your life. It's just, you buy something new, electronic, and by the time you get it unpacked, it's outdated
I agree
with
totally.
technological changes. So we just need to have a mental mindset about replacing equipment periodically,
And
and
so,
budget for that kind of stuff.
I have experienced a few old machines that people are using for demonstration purposes, or to have a guest person come in and access something that they need to do as part of their hiring process. The minute I saw those old machines, I knew we needed a project to
Exactly.
get new machines in place whenever we see an old thing like
That's what they
that. As
call
far
for.
as I know, none are in place for production use by our employees. These
Thank
were,
you, thank you very much.
okay.
Did you have another question?
No, I did, I'm sorry, I was playing with
Okay,
my computer.
John, thank you very much.
You're very
Appreciate all the
welcome.
information.
Thank you.
That's-
Item number 2, landfill e-waste recycling fees. Mike, or Tom,
Actually, Tom,
Well,
Cheryl.
this is a great segue because you guys are gonna get rid of computers, what are you gonna do with them?
What, the question, sir, is
Tell
what
them to
is
start
our
Bill, right?
IT guy?
Mayor, members of council, this evening. I'm just bringing forth, the proposed rates for e-waste recycling at the landfill. We've contracted off, not really a formal contractor, with Blue Star Recycling out of Denver and Colorado Springs. This is a 501c3 company, of course you know all about that, but we have purchased a small Connex box and they have brought down 6 boxes, excuse me, to sort e-waste in, and before we can start accepting e-waste, we're gonna have to have some kind of a fee structure, because they do charge us for the waste that we recycle. They also charge us a fee to come down and drop off and pick up. So one trip is $250. So in order to cover that cost of $250, we've kind of taken liberty with the fees they charge, which is a governmental fee or a municipal fee. They're charging us to pick stuff up. We add a little bit to that, and we just kind of rounded things off to make it simple for the guys at the landfill, so they don't have to be standing there with a calculator figuring things out. Everything is done by the pound, except for computers, as you had in your pad, or in your packet, excuse me. Computers, that's towers, laptops, servers, tablets, iPads, Kindles, smartphones, cell phones. Those are $3 a piece. Doesn't matter what size, how old, how big, how small, it's $3. And then everything else is $1 a pound. And that just makes it simple for the guys. That we've got a scale, we've got it certified by the state. Someone comes in, they have a box of stuff, we set it on the scale, it's 8 pounds, it's $8. And we sort it out a little bit in the Connex box just to make it simpler for the guys when they come and pick it up. And we go from there.
questions for Tom?
Sounds like we have a plan in place, or
Sure.
developing.
We're developing, yeah, that'd be what we're developing. We're kind of new at this, so we'll see.
You haven't started doing that?
We have not, because we're waiting for council's approval for the fee structure.
Oh. I just wanna know how you came up with the fee structure. Is it good, are we gonna be in a deficit spending on this at $250?
I think we're gonna be pretty good. We're juggling that around. Quite honestly, they don't charge us for computers
Oh, okay.
at all. And the first group, the electronics, they do not charge us. They'll take those for no charge. So I'm hoping that offsets quite a bit of it. And then the other, we're making about 25% on the other stuff, so.
Are you gonna, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, we're not trying to make any money, we're just trying to cover our expenses.
Yeah, right, that's what I was getting at. Are you gonna advertise, or do we
Yes.
do we get a lot out there of e-waste that you have to turn back?
The guys throw stuff over the fence, guys
Oh.
turning stuff back, yes, we do.
Okay.
Quite honestly. But yeah, we will advertise. I mean, I'm looking forward to advertising, the flyers downstairs and put something in the paper every once in a while. I think at first, we're gonna be overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
We may have 2 trips where the Connex is full really quick, but then after that, it'll taper off. Cause I myself have 3 televisions sitting in the basement with nowhere to go. So I'm waiting for this just to just to bring stuff in.
We just got rid of all of our e-waste down at our office, and my computer tech that I use found a place to take them, and I think it was $750.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah,
That's a lot.
a lot of CPUs.
Well, we had a bunch of electronic stuff next door that we were cleaning out because of part of our safety thing. And we probably had, I'm gonna guess, 75, 80 pounds of stuff that we took out and put in the boxes, because it's our stuff, it's the city
Right.
stuff. I'm not gonna charge the city to take stuff to the
I
landfill.
know.
So we'll offset that when we pay the first bill on that. we have to do something with it, but you can't just throw it in the hole, so.
My concern is that we're probably taking e-waste without knowing it right now.
Somewhat, wouldn't doubt.
You know, you get an iPad, you just have to stick it in a big hefty bag with your garden trimmings. And so my concern is that, well, I guess, how do we find that e-waste? I mean, or does it just, what's the motivation for people to comply other than their conscience? Is there
There
any
really,
policing?
there
'Cause we
really
can't
isn't.
go
I
through
mean, the
garbage.
guys at the face will see stuff and pull it
Right.
out, you know, that kind of thing, but they may see it after the fact, so I mean, you know, we still leave after the fact, but it won't go
But do
in the
we
face.
take e-waste that people have just dumped on us and then pay to have it recycled? Or whatever, tipping fee?
At this point, I'm not aware that there's a problem with it. I've not been made aware that there's a problem with
Okay.
stuff being dumped. I think everybody's just sitting on it right now, trying to figure out where, I get calls all the time. where
So
it's-
there's a lot of voluntary compliance.
Yeah, there is.
That's
It's-
gratifying. It's-
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, actually.
Okay, fair enough. Rusty?
I know there's a lot of people that try to sneak it in, and the amount of dumpsters we have and the amount of people, I am constantly digging stuff out. So I know it may be a minute amount, but there's gonna be some I think we deal with. for
Yeah, I was
sure.
afraid it might be a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a fridge struck last night in the middle of the night, but they stuck a bag of garbage in it luckily. And I pulled it out and opened it up and find their names. And that's what I do to prevent it from happening. So good job, it's a good that we will now have a place. So in our business, recycling TVs and stuff, this is something we need. Good job.
Cool.
Well, I'm sure glad to hear it because my microwave went out in my house about a month and a half ago, and my wife keeps telling me, when am I gonna get rid of this microwave that's sitting on the side of the house? So, thank you, Tom, she'll be glad to hear that.
Okay, you're welcome, sir. Yeah, I was surprised that they actually do take microwaves, even coffee makers.
Right.
Okay.
Good deal.
And what they did say, and I'll pass this and we'll make this known more as we do stuff, but, like the old council TVs, you know, right, wooden. We're gonna charge them for the wooden piece of the TV, if they bring it that way. If they bring us just the electronics, we're only gonna charge them for the electronics. They can take the wood and throw it in the lantern and burn it or do whatever with it.
Right.
But if you bring it and set it in front, you're gonna get charged for that whole piece of equipment rather than just.
That's standard all Tom.
Yeah.
They said you had an old TV, you had an old TV
Yeah.
stand with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna charge you for everything, so if you can get the consoles or like a rear projection TV, you know, the great big ones, you know, pull the electronics out of it and take the rest of it, throw it on your face.
Do you,
Considerably cheaper.
do you feel, is there anything else, Joe?
No, go ahead, yeah.
Do you feel like the personnel are, there's not gonna need to be an increase in personnel for any of this?
I would like to see an increase in personnel, but not for this particularly, no. Jeremy's there at the time, well, we're gonna have it, I haven't said anything to anybody else, but what I'd like to do is have even some of the art students at college or high school or whatever, come out and paint the Connex and say e-waste collection. So we'll advertise it for people so that they can know it's there.
I guess the biggest thing is, you know, getting the word out to the public that this is available to them. And hopefully that we'll get a big compliance to this, so hopefully.
I know a lot of people have been sitting on stuff for quite a while trying to figure out what to do with it.
I agree. Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Tom.
it.
Thank you.
The third item, of course, is just discussion of other possible agenda items from council. Are there any items that council could think of in the near future that we need to bring up for work sessions? Mr. Tate, you have anything?
Not that I can remember, give me a minute.
If you think of something, I guess best thing is get it to Mike.
Yes, right, please.
Karen?
I talked to Mike already about talking about the completion of the shelter. What are we gonna do, because that time is imperative with that project, because if we don't decide what we're gonna do on the inside and they put the windows and everything in, then it's gonna be more expensive.
Yes, so from that discussion, I've emailed Laurel and said we need to have some concrete information, we need to have a meeting and sit down, so we can bring something back to council. I'm
in the process of getting my mind around a lot of the projects. That's one of them that I wanna, get a hold of. So, well, I've already sent out an email, Tom, have you heard anything? No response, so.
It goes back to the work session that we had a few weeks back, our request, what we were requesting from her to bring forward, so
Right.
you're needing to have that
Right.
information.
But you know, excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, after the discussion we had at the work session, it seems like what got us into trouble the first time is we put this figure out here of $400,000. I don't know if anybody substantiated that figure with a bid or how that figger was projected.
I think that was from the engineers, wasn't it where we came with that number?
For the interior finish?
No,
the shell.
For the shell, that was just a pie in the sky number, to be honest.
Yeah,
Right.
that was-
Right, but that ended up fairly accurate. The question is, why did we assume they had the funds to build it out?
Well, I think they do, but
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
you know, not completely. But we have to get to that because then what's gonna happen if we don't address this pretty quick, then like I said, the windows are gonna be in. And then it's gonna take more money to finish the interior of that building.
So let's just take this under advisement of
Go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say, you know, they need to bring us that information.
Right.
So that we can
Right.
have another serious conversation.
What, and
And
this has
that's
to
it.
be, we need to expect a certain amount of candor.
Yeah.
I mean, that meeting left me with the feeling that we were playing Texas Hold'em with somebody.
Good point.
You know, the goal is to have the animal service facility. And the question is, we can't be playing games back and forth with each other over what are our resources, and who's gonna pay, and who's not gonna pay. And I got that,
Mhm.
I had that sense about the feeling that I got sitting at that table. I felt like, wow, I'm just not real sure.
Well, I think, you know, all of us council that day, we sat there, we all had the same mindset, and we needed that information and the numbers of what they have, what are the estimates for the cost, what do they have, what kind of funds do they have available themselves to put forth.
And the more we talked, the more information was coming out. Why is it gonna be like that? It's like pulling teeth.
So we just need to get full information.
I definitely got the impression is they're not, I think, 100% willing to spend every penny they have to finish that on something that they do not own, will not own.
And then I see that, I thought I heard them say they were trying to budget for operational funds. And that's logical,
It
that's
does.
forward thinking, but
But
at what expense, you know?
Yeah.
They also didn't want to own the building.
So there's a lot of discussion we're gonna have to have.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so if
we'll
council,
bring that forward.
I'll, as quickly as I can, pull some information together.
And ask them for that information. We're not gonna do anything until we get that information from them. Carlos.
A couple of things. Excuse me. One, I want to go back to where we had that discussion about ordinance enforcement. Is that going to be coming up on our regular work session? Like training pertaining to actually putting more teeth to our ordinances. Okay, instead of being a 30-day, you have to get this done by now. It's like a 5-day.
Yeah.
Are we moving on
Or it's
that?
escalating penalties.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Or
that's.
if you don't take care of your yard, if we go do it, it's going to be a number that someone's not going to want to pay, so they're going to do it themselves in a timely manner versus you've got 30 days, we're going to be back in 2 weeks to check on you.
I agree.
Remember we had that kind of
Yeah,
discussion?
we did.
Yeah.
We did.
You mentioned it,
We've done it
or
in fits
council.
and starts, I think, but I think we're,
So that's
We need
one
to
of the things
finish.
I would like to see that we can either bring into a session through a change in the ordinance of how our situations are dealt with at this current point in time.
There's certain noticing requirements, and then they have, their
We're talking,
timelines.
So we're talking about moving those timelines up.
we're talking about changing those timelines.
But we don't wanna make a penalty structure that is automatically punitive. And I don't mean to talk about something that we're not scheduled to talk about, but you don't wanna make something that is automatically necessarily punitive, like so cost prohibitive that if you hear what the violation is going to be, that you never wanna run afoul of it. I mean, it needs to be kind of rationally related to code enforcement and what it is we're trying to do. In other words, you don't wanna say, it's gonna be $2,500. I know that's an exaggeration,
No, But I could see, like, okay, if we have a yard that is not being mitigated over a month, right? So that's already been dealt with, the letter has been sent, they've got like 15 days to 30 days to get something addressed, and if nothing's done, then we would have to go send out our crew to go and mitigate that problem. And with that being said, it'd be like a $200 or $500,
Right.
something that's punitive but yet affordable to say, okay, I'm gonna take care of this myself now.
Right.
And just the threat of that reasonable cost, not $2,500.
No, I understand. Again, it was an exaggeration, but also your point is, if we as a municipality have to remediate the problem, then it's going to cost more.
So anyway, like I said, that's something that we do need to have.
Right.
Right.
Okay, you bet. We'll talk.
The second thing was, I would like to have a discussion about where we stand with our class and comp plan. Is it moving forward? I know we've had a change now, and I'd like to just kind of see where we stand at that, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'd like to be clear on where it is when people come up to me and say, where are we?
Mike, do you want to say anything on that, or do you want to just wait till?
Yeah, well, definitely, I'm working through that. We have a plan, we're in budget. I'll be frank, the plan was put in place and the budget isn't there to do that. So I'm trying to figure out a way to implement through stages and stuff, and also take a look at the whole plan itself. So being it's employee wages and stuff, I will give you an update that I can.
And that's fine, as long as we can have some numbers to say, okay, what can we do, what can we not do?
Right.
And like you said, maybe have a plan over time to get this resolved.
Well, I think the big, go ahead.
In all fairness to your position, what you're trying to do now, I think it, rather than us to sit here and say, well, we need to do this, and we wanna see this to completion and such, it probably, in my mind, it makes more sense to allow you and staff the time necessary to make an inventory of all the projects that are out there and where we are, and what level of development. I realize that's a significant thing, it's very important. But a sewer system through the middle of La Puerta is a huge project. Negotiating with the housing authority over the Archbase project, that could put a stop to an $18 million project. And that all having been said, in my small mind, means that I think it's better to take an inventory of all the things that are paying, Monument Lake, all the things that we got out there, and list them in terms of priorities, where we need to go with what we're doing in the interim. And class and comp is a significant thing, I understand that, but that's not gonna affect $18 million worth of a project if we don't get to it right away. So that having been said, I think it's more to everyone, the city of Trinidad's collective benefit, if we can do a logical assessment of where we are, and then we can decide where we need to go.
Go ahead, Steve. And I know you used it as an example of prioritizing, but I just wanna make sure that people understand there is no credible threat of the housing authority bringing down a $19 million project. It does not exist. And I'd rarely use language that strong.
Okay.
You're pretty conservative.
Yeah. But anyway, I think it's my turn anyway, right? The Space 38 Commons Oversight Committee is been seated. I think they want to add more board members, but there have been 2 meetings. And I've gotten a full update. I think Aaron's a member of that board. And I'm not sure we need an update at this point, but I think we need to put on our agenda some sort of follow-up. And I think what we want to do is have them present for our vote. You know, I think there's probably some dialogue. Do you agree?
I agree with that.
Yeah, so
So a work session so that.
a work session to get an
Yeah.
update. I don't think it's next week, but I think it's probably within the next month or so. Do you think? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
On common space.
Yeah, and it's a give and take, like this is what we're finding and, you know. And that's all.
Rusty?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Joe?
Just pretty quiet group, yeah.
You know, I think one of the things, and going back to your question about the class and the comp, and I think what really needs, that's all part of the budgeting process. And I think that is, we need to actually listen to our financial person, and along with Mike, to see if it's a formula. That's really what it boils down to. So, I think that's a recommendation that we're gonna have to hear from them. The one thing, you kind of covered one of the things that I had already, Well, one thing, and I'm not sure where this would lie, but we are seeing a lot of these metal containers popping up all over town. And we need to find out where, under what ordinance, under
Pods?
those pods,
Yeah.
they're popping up all over. And I think we need to find out is if they are included in any of our ordinances now, or if we need to come up with something because they are ugly. And I just
And
don't-
often semi-permanent.
Right. So I think that's something that, there's one up there by us, and there's a couple of others around town that I've seen. They're not, so I think that's something we need to talk about. Okay, that's all I have. Okay, let's go ahead and end the work session, and, we'll give Tom a few minutes to break down, and we'll move into our special meeting. Take a few minutes. What?
You mean executive session?
Going into a special, meeting right now.
It is an executive session.
Well, it's a special meeting, and then I'll call the executive session to it.
No vote after.
There'll be no-
But it's all, it's all executive session,
Let's-
right?
let's-
Yes, yes.
Let's do this before we get into it. Michelle?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me call it to order, and then we'll give you some time to go through it. Okay, today is September the 9th, 2019. The time is now 5:40. A special meeting of the City Council will now come to order. We have the following item on consideration for City Council. Item 1, executive session. 1A, for a conference with the city's attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on special legal questions under CRS section 24-6-402, 4B, confidentiality. Item B, for discussion of a matter required to be kept confidential by the following federal or state law, rule, or regulation. Rule 1.1-1.6, Colorado Rules of Professional Conduct under CRS section 24-6-402, 4B, confidentiality. Motion to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Call roll, please.
Bernardo,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Griego,
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Matei,
Yes.
Miles.
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.